Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
Late last night I was thinking of a love affair of mine. Pretty soon I got to drinking. What better way to pass the time?
Tomorrow night is the live finale of the 23rd season of The Voice. The hit NBC show is a mainstay among singing reality competition shows on network TV. A local contestant named Kennedy Holmes from Florissant got 4th place on the show back in 2018, and Joanna Sarenko from Kirkwood got 9th overall in 2020. In this current season, another St. Louis musician made it onto the show, and that's Neil Salsich. He got the attention of all 4 judges with his blind audition of Honky Tonk Blues by Hank Williams.
Well, I left my home on the rural route. I told my pa I'm going stepping out to get the honky tonk blues. Yeah, them honky tonk blues. Hey, Lord, I got 'em. I got the honky tonk blues. Well, I went to
That's St. Louis musician Neil Salsich singing Honky Tonk Blues by Hank Williams for his blind audition for The Voice.
blues. Yeah, them honky tonk blues. Oh, Lord, I got 'em. I got the honky tonk blues.
Neil is a founding member of the St. Louis-based band The Mighty Pines. He sings and plays guitar. And while Neil's no longer a contestant on the show, he just missed making it to the phase of competition where they go to the live performances. The whole experience with The Voice has had a profound impact on his career. St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis had a chance to talk with Neil, and he first noted that country musician Blake Shelton was the first of the 4 judges to turn their chair around during the blind audition. Chad asked him if it was difficult to keep his composure.
Yes and no, I think. It got harder and harder with every chair that turned around. And all of that was really happening in such a short amount of time, but it did feel like slow motion.
Why did you select Honky Tonk Blues? I mean, you also sing blues, folk, and rock and roll, so kind of talk about that.
Yes, I love singing all genres of music. I really do. I knew at some point during the show I wanted to just sing some good old-fashioned country music, and you really can't go wrong with those Hank Williams songs. So that's a song that excites me when I hear it, and I love taking an old scratchy recording, feeling that excitement in it, and then showing people in 2023 how hip it is and how cool it is. And that's when you sing that. When I sing it, that's my goal.
What was it about that song that, showcased your abilities?
Well, I think it was that I actually sort of made my own arrangement of it, I mean, it's not that far off from the original song, but I sped up the tempo a little bit and just kind of made it my own. I just gave it, I guess, a little bit more soul, a little bit more blues than the original has.
You gave it a little bit more Neil.
Yeah, that's right. A little bit more St. Louis.
A little bit more St. Louis. Well, I know that The Voice is one of those shows where you have to submit a video in order to even get included or even get considered on the show. So, talk a little bit about that process and what that was like for you.
Yeah, that was always kind of unexpected, and I never knew kind of what was next because the very first audition was just a 90-second web portal that you kind of log on to, and there's this 3, 2, 1, go. It's not even a person you're singing to. It's just, it's like a Zoom camera basically. And you sing a cappella for 90 seconds, and then it just ends, and it goes, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch if we want you back. And sure enough, I got an email. It said, you're on to the next. And the next round was 3 full video performances. So it just kind of went on and off, and it got it got more complex with each round.
When did that happen, when you submitted that video?
That was actually on June 22nd of last year, and I remember that because the solstice was the night before.
Wow.
And I went out to see Dead and Company at Riverport and had entirely too much fun and kind of almost pretty much forgot about this video portal the next day. And I was just doing my thing the next morning, recovering from a really fun night out, and remembered, oh my gosh, I have to sing in like 5 minutes. And so the rest is history.
The rest is history, and here you are now. So what did you submit for that song?
Well, that time I wasn't really even sure what to sing. It had to be a cappella and it had to be a cover. And one of my all-time favorite singers is Aaron Neville. And he has this one, I think his first hit single ever, way back like in the early 60s, is a song called Tell It Like It Is. And that's what I sang.
So I know that obviously this is a long process. You started it in June of last year. So overall, could you kind of talk a little bit about, what it was like participating in the competition?
Yeah, man, it was the adventure of a lifetime. There's no way around that. It was amazing, something I'm so grateful for. It was a long journey, I've been reflecting on it now that it's wrapping up, and that was from the end of June last year to mid-May of 2023. And that was just, man, it was just a journey. There was a lot of behind the scenes work, a lot of time that I was out there in LA filming most of the show that people saw. And all that time I couldn't really talk about it or share the news or anything. So for that reason, it's just unlike anything I've ever really gone through before.
I want to get into that in a little bit about just how strange it must have been to, kind of record something and then coming back here while we're all watching it, at that point. Before I get to that, though, had you ever watched The Voice before?
Not really. I had seen just clips, sort of Instagram clips. Joanna Sarenko is now a good friend of mine. She is a young woman from Kirkwood who, when she was only like 18, she was on a season right after Kennedy Holmes. And that's when I first sort of heard of The Voice, and because people were talking about you gotta watch her audition, you gotta see it, and I was watching that, and I was incredibly impressed. So I would see other clips throughout the years, and I just really loved the songs that people were singing. I assumed like, I could never do The Voice because I don't really know that much pop music of this day and age, but the songs that I was seeing on the show were the golden oldies. And I thought, all right, that's my flavor.
So, I mean, not watching it before, then kind of why did you audition for it?
I just, I was watching these great singers sing these great songs, and I really thought, I think I can do that too. And I want to do that. I wanted to sing in front of people like John Legend, who I was watching Joanna sing in front of, or Kelly Clarkson, or just these amazing, amazing celebrity musicians. And just the idea of just standing in front of them and singing was very exciting.
Of course. Well, did the show go like you thought it would, or were there any surprises that came with it that you didn't expect?
I'd say most of it was always pretty surprising, like even the fact that I knew that I was talented enough to make it on the show, but just the fact that I was even doing it and like living that kind of dream was pretty surprising. And it was also a different setup than I think any other Voice season in terms of just the timeline of it. It was, for whatever reason, a shortened season. There weren't as many episodes. But that was definitely a disappointment. I think on other seasons I would have had more airtime and more just chances to sing more songs, which is really the reason I wanted to go out there.
I see. Well, I did want to know why you chose Blake Shelton as your coach, since you did get all four of the judges to turn their chairs around.
Well, there's four coaches you could potentially choose from, and Blake blocked Kelly, which took out an entire 25% of my choice. So that was kind of a relief, actually. And then I guess I chose Blake really because I knew it was his last season. I had found that out in the news like a couple days before that audition, and that kind of threw my whole plan for a loop. I think I wanted to go with Kelly, but obviously she was blocked, and then I just thought, man, this is going to be crazy. To be on Blake's last team for the show that he's been on since day one. I could not really resist that.
No, I understand. Well, there was a point of the season where you sang Taking It to the Streets by the Doobie Brothers. It was actually the Doobie Brothers' first single, Michael McDonald, a St. Louis native on vocals, actually came out with. So let's play a little bit of that performance.
You don't know me, but I'm your brother. I was raised here in this living hell. You don't know my kind in your world. Fairly soon, the time will tell. Telling me the things you're gonna do for me. I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. Taking it to the street. No more need for running. Yeah,
That's Neil Salsich singing Taking It to the Streets on this season of The Voice. When you sang that song, you were pitted against Grace West, who is another singer this season. Your coach at the time, Blake Shelton, chose Grace West over you. Could you take me back to that moment? I mean, how were you feeling?
Wow, all these performances are honestly such a blur in retrospect. I just remember it as kind of just these flashing white lights, truly. I felt great about that performance. I mean, I knew that Grace was going to be a formidable opponent. I didn't really know her. You're not really you may not be interacting with the contestants that much, while you're preparing, especially just given certain schedules. And Grace was kind of like new into my world once we were paired up. So I hadn't had a chance to hear her sing. And when I did, I thought, oh man, she's just got a great voice. And that's the thing about voices. There's you can have one great voice and another great voice, and they could just be totally different, and they're still great, So I kind of saw that in her. I thought, well, I'm a certain vibe, she's a certain vibe, but I was definitely aware of the possibility that, Blake could pick her. So
now, Blake did pick her, but hope was not lost because right as that moment happened and you were walking away, judge and singer Kelly Clarkson jumped in and she was able to save you. So could you talk a little bit about how that worked?
Yeah. There's only so many saves that are allocated in the show. And I'm very grateful that Kelly saved me, man. I mean, that would have been a pretty short little run on The Voice, So she gave me some more life, and I'm super grateful for that. I also I knew my performance was really good. And so I just had a feeling that one of the coaches were going to save me. I knew because they'd all had a lot of great, great praise for me during my previous performances. That was another cool part of the show, just not to just have your one coach that you're singing for, but just to sing in front of the other ones that you're not on their team. They're not trying to coach you. They're just enjoying what you're doing. And I felt a lot of love from them.
Well, you were kicked off the show right before the live performances started. Was it weird to have to keep a lot of this season a secret from others who had no idea what was happening?
Yes. Probably the weirdest thing of my professional life ever, because this was the biggest thing of my professional life that I've ever done. And I had to just not say anything about it. It was trippy. There was almost times where I would be walking around St. Louis and almost forget that I had done this thing, at least up until the show premiered. That was certainly true. And once it did premiere and people saw my 4-chair turn and all this excitement was in the air, I already knew that I was, off the show that whole time. So that was totally bizarre. And I'm really glad that I don't have to, pretend anymore.
Now it's all out there.
Yeah.
Now we all know. Well, we don't have to linger on this for too long, but could you kind of take us back to that moment then when you were eliminated? Because, what was going through your head at that exact time?
Well, it was down to the wire. I really felt like I had a chance to move on. But as I was explaining earlier, this season was such an abrupt cut from 20 people to 8 people for the live performances. And usually it takes a lot longer than there. So I kind of knew that it was possible for me to move on, but I also knew, well, there's 5 of us on Team Kelly right now, and there's 5 amazing, amazing singers. Like, it could almost be any 2 of us, So I really didn't know what was going to happen till the last moment, and it was a disappointment, but not a defeat or not anything crushing. It just happened in the moment, and I was prepared for that if it did happen, and it did. So just kind of walked off stage, and from that moment, all the fanfare of the show, at least on set, is kind of over. You walk off, they put you in a van, you're back at the hotel, and you have your plane ticket and your email, and I was home the next morning.
That's St. Louis musician Neil Salsich talking with Chad Davis. Neil was a contestant on this season of NBC's show, The Voice. More of this conversation in just a moment. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
Welcome back. Let's return to St. Louis Public Radio reporter Chad Davis's conversation with Neil Salsich. Neil is a St. Louis musician who is on this season of NBC's reality singing competition, The Voice. Neil did well on the show, but didn't quite make the cut to the live performances. The finale of the season is tomorrow. Here's Chad.
Let's pivot to the Mighty Pines. That's a local band that you founded in 2012 and that you sing and play guitar for. Here's one of the band's songs. This is called Late Last Night.
Late last night I was thinking of a love affair of mine. Pretty soon I got to drinking. What better way to pass the time? All alone I started thinking about a life lived on the run. Soon my heart was sinking together with the setting sun. Take me higher than I've ever been. Pull me out of this fire. Let's do it again.
That's St. Louis-based band The Mighty Pines with Late Last Night, the title track off their 2020 album. So, compared to your 2017 album, this music, at least to me, sounds a little bit more upbeat. I wanted to know if that's accurate and what went into putting together your most recent album.
Yeah, it's certainly, upbeat. It's a lot more than that, too. It's more us. It's more diverse, that's for sure, in our sounds. But it does still come together as a cohesive album. That's what you have to make sure and achieve, I think, if you're a band like the Mighty Pines, which is being excited and influenced by so many different sounds, but putting them together in a way that still doesn't feel like all over the place, And I think we did that with this album.
You talked about sound and diversity of sounds. Could you kind of describe that a little bit? I mean, how would you describe the sound of the group?
Yeah, I always describe the sound of the group as rock and roll. But I stand behind that because if you actually study rock and roll and in all of its different forms throughout the decades, it is a diverse mix of sounds. It really, really is. And but at the end of the day, it kind of rock and roll comes from what we would call American roots music, I think, and that is where our music comes from too. And that goes back to that Hank Williams comment I made earlier, which is just like taking something from roots music or something, quote, old, but finding that sort of kernel within it that keeps it alive throughout the years and like making that new again for listeners in 2023. And I really believe that's what the Mighty Pines do with our sound.
Well, let's take it back a little bit. I would love to know how you even got started on your musical journey. I mean, when was that and how did that even happen?
Well, just a kid growing up that just loved music. And other kids had like toys or things that their parents would take away from them to, if they're in timeout, like, no more TV, no more video games. For me, it was a Walkman that I was obsessed with. And like, if I got in trouble, my mom would take that Walkman away and I couldn't listen to tapes anymore. And I would be beside myself. So that's the kind of kid I was growing up. And I just soaked in all this music for a long time. And came back to St. Louis after college, had never really done anything serious with music, and spent the last 10 years just in the school of hard knocks, learning how to play by just playing, meeting great musicians, playing with better musicians, playing all over the city, playing all over the country, and just kind of learning that way.
It's three other members of the Mighty Pines. How did you even form the band?
Well, the bass player, John, and I were classmates at St. Louis U High, so we met each other there. I went to Truman State University, where I met Gerard Erker, another bandmate, and John ended up at Truman. So the roots of the band definitely started in beautiful Northeast Missouri at Truman State. And we all came back to St. Louis and formed what became the Mighty Pines. We met our drummer, Mike, who is an amazingly talented guy who had been studying at Webster University. And we just, I don't know, man. Do you call that fate? I don't know. We just came together, and all four of us really wanted to make a life doing this. No matter what. I think we were all excited about music, and we just knew that was the best way to spend our days. So.
How did they feel about you being on The Voice? They're watching from home. You're out there on The Voice.
Yeah, they were incredibly excited for me, which I'm so happy about. It meant so much to me to feel their support and excitement. And they knew that it would just be, we're all friends too. So they were just happy for me as friends and excited for me as my friend, but also as bandmates, they knew that this would be a big opportunity for the band and bring some good spotlight on the band, and it has done that.
Obviously, you talked a little bit about the influences that kind of inspired the song selections on The Voice, but who are the artists that really kind of stood out to the band and kind of influenced the sound that you all have propelled forward?
Yeah, that list is a whole other segment probably, but if I, to make it short, we started being really influenced by bluegrass music. We just in college, we were listening to a lot of jam bands, and there's like a subset of that genre where it's like bluegrass jam bands, and it's just amazing stuff, amazing synthesis of genres, and once again making kind of old music new again and really fresh. And that was a huge part of our formation. As the years progressed, I think we all wanted to express something else with our music too, and that's why I call us rock and roll, because we present acoustically, but we play electrically. That's one thing I've been saying. Even if we play acoustic instruments, we have that energy of electricity in our band, and there's just so many influences that we honestly proudly wear on our sleeves, and that's like an ongoing journey too. That's unfolding, man. If we talk again in a couple of years, there will be totally fresh influences on the band and new songs. I have no idea where it's going to go.
Well, what comes next for you all? I mean, touring, new music. Talk a little bit about those next
Yes, business is booming right now because of this whole Voice situation, which is great. We can barely keep up with all the offers that we're getting, and we're very grateful for all this great work. We're not doing as much touring. We'd like to get back to that, but you got to build a team first, and we had spent many years building a team that the storm of COVID sort of separated or blew apart. So the music industry is actually still emerging from the pandemic, even though it does feel like we're getting some distance from there. In the scheme of things, it really did just happen. So for the meantime, we've got some amazing gigs in the St. Louis area and regionally this whole summer, including the next one will be the summer solstice at the Missouri Botanical Gardens for the Whitaker Music Festival. Yes. And isn't that cool? We booked that gig. That was just the best open date that we had. And weeks later, I realized, oh my gosh, that's the summer solstice. So it's going to be an amazing night. And I know a lot of St. Louis will be there.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, how do you even select the offers now that I'm sure are coming through because of the voice as well? How do you select the different offers and such and decide what to say yes to?
Yeah, that comes down to mostly money. I mean, money talks. So there's a certain price that'll get us out of the house and to the gig, but it's got to be more than that. It's a mix of just we love having a great mix of gigs. And that's why, like, for example, the Whitaker Festival is really great because so many concerts really take place on the weekends late at night. This is on a Wednesday night starting at 7 o'clock, outside, free, family-friendly. Like, that's an important element to have. And then there's going to also be Music at the Intersection, which is in September, something that we are so excited to be a part of, so honored to be asked to be a part of it. And that's going to be an amazing high-energy festival experience, right? And there's even more types of gigs that we'll play all year, really. So we want to experience personally a mix of gigs, but we also want to give that to our fans.
Of course. Well, what do you want people to take away from your time on The Voice and your music career so far?
I want people to be proud of St. Louis. That was the most meaningful part of this experience for me, and one of the most surprising. Just seeing and hearing from people how proud they were, and how my performances, how that made them feel proud of themselves and their community. Like man, that just moves me to no end, and is something a lot bigger than what I originally thought. I want people to be proud of St. Louis. I want people to be proud of the music here. I want people to be proud of the music history here. And I want people to feel excited about what's happening right now and what is going to happen, because there is something in the water here. There always has been, but there's something happening right now, like embers of a fire or something, that is just like, you can watch it and you just know something's about to like catch flame. I can really feel that here. So I think it's going to be a really exciting couple years in St. Louis for music.
That's Neil Salsich talking with St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis. Neil is a founding member of and singer-guitarist for the St. Louis band, the Mighty Pines. Neil Salsich was a contestant on this season of NBC's singing reality show, The Voice, the finale of which is tomorrow. And let's go to the show with another track of the Mighty Pines 2020 album called Time Slows Down.
When you're a child and you're walking down the street, you know your mama's gonna hold your hand. And if you fall and scrape up your knees, she'll be there to help you up. And we're gonna get by with a little help from your friends. And we're gonna try to make it through the end. And we're gonna cry of that mountain, but you gotta climb when time slows down.
You can read more about the band and see their upcoming show dates for the St. Louis area at themightypines.com, and we'll also have a link to that on our website at stlonair.show.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.